Join us on this 5 miles kayak from Mumbles to Swansea on the Wales coast on the 25th of October 2023. Watch on to learn about the scenery along Swansea Bay, the history of Mumbles and Swansea, including the medieval Oystermouth Castle and the Viking origins of Swansea. Important safety information about tides that you need to know if you're going to paddle Swansea Bay. The Sandbanks optimal inflatable kayak that we used on this trip. Swansea Bay's own version of Atlantis, the lands lost to the sea. And most importantly, our favourite restaurant and pubs on Swansea Bay. Swansea Bay is on the South Wales coast, flanked by the Gower Peninsula and the industrial area of Port Talbot. Launching at Nab Rock at about 2:45 p.m, we paddled eastwards past the vibrant waterfront of Mumbles. Passing West Cross and Blackpill, we paddled along Swansea Beach and past the city centre before landing at about 5:45 p.m. on the beach near the Swansea Marina. That's the famous Mumbles Pier over there. We're at the slipway at Nab Rock car park in Mumbles, looking across the bay towards our destination at Swansea. Here comes Archie wheeling our inflatable kayak down from the pay and display car park at Nab Rock. The sea looks nice and flat for our paddle across the bay to Swansea. It's taken us about 10 minutes to inflate and set up the Sandbanks Optimal kayak that we're going to use for our paddle today, so we're all set to launch once Archie comes off the phone. Mumbles Pier drifted away behind us as we paddled away from Nab Rock. The Mumbles lifeboat station is located at the end of the pier. We sincerely hoped that we would not be needing their services today on our trip across Swansea Bay. That light blue building over there is Mumbles Yacht Club. I'm sure they'll be toasting us from the bar as they see the Kayak Crew paddling past. As per the sea swell forecast that we checked before we set off, there's a very flat glass sea this afternoon with very light winds from the south. We're just passing Verdis, which is my favourite Mumbles restaurant, and that light blue building in the background is the Pilot, which is my favourite Mumbles pub. The Pilot is a cracking pub with a maritime theme, and we'll hopefully have time to call in there later after the paddle for a beer. Mumbles, often called the gateway to the Gower, was originally a large village centred around oyster dredging, quarrying and farming. As time went by, these industries began to decline and tourism took their place. There's some big works going on over there on the sea defences, and on the bluffs overlooking us you can see the remains of the magnificent Oystermouth Castle. Oystermouth Castle is the Gower Peninsula's finest castle, standing on a small hill with a magnificent view over Swansea Bay and the resort town of Mumbles. It is today well cared for by the Friends of Oystermouth Castle, a voluntary group who look after the running of the castle during the open season. It's best to paddle Swansea Bay within 2 to 3 hours either side of high tide, because towards low tide it goes out an awful long way. Mumbles Pier opened on the 10th of May 1898. It was a major terminal for the White Funnel paddle steamers, unloading tourists from routes along the River Severn and the Bristol Channel. When the tide is in, then Swansea Bay looks like a huge lake, because it's such a long curving bay. I thought I was going to have a mutiny on my hands just now when I told Archie that we didn't have time to stop at Joe's Ice Cream Parlour. This paddle on Swansea Bay is part of our undertaking to kayak all of the 870 miles or so of the Wales coast. History was made when the world's first passenger railway was built between Mumbles and Swansea. Initially designed for carrying coal, a horse-drawn passenger service was added in 1807. Sadly, the Mumbles Railway was dismantled in 1960, but many locals would like to see it reinstated. We had parked at Nab Rock Pay and Display car park in Mumbles and had a lift back from Swansea off a friend when we finished the kayak. If you only had one vehicle, then there is quite a regular bus service between Swansea and the Mumbles, or you could get a taxi back to the Mumbles, or vice versa of course. We used a tandem Sandbanks Style optimal kayak for this trip. Due to the full drop stitch construction, it inflates to a very high air pressure of 10 psi to 12 psi, which means that the hull and the decks become very firm and rigid, almost like a hard shell kayak. We find the Sandbanks Style Optimal to be very stable and easy to get into and out of due to the firm drop stitch floor and the quite low sides to the cockpit. There is a slight V to the hull which helps the kayak to track well, and it's pretty fast through the water. It packs away into a large carry bag which you can either carry on your back as a backpack or wheel along on the built-in wheels. This portability is super useful and avoids the need for roof racks or trailers. The Sandbanks Optimal also comes in a shorter solo-only model. We have uploaded our full review of this kayak to our product reviews playlist on our channel. In 1793, the Mumbles Lighthouse was erected on the outer of the two tidal islands of Mumbles Head, after many a dreadful shipwreck. Indeed, we've almost come a cropper on those rocks ourselves when we've been out paddling off Mumbles Head. As with much of the South Wales coast, Swansea Bay is very tidal. If you're paddling Swansea Bay, then if at all possible, you need to go with the tide. Otherwise, it could be a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. When the tide is coming in, it runs from west to east across the bay. Conversely, when the tide is going out, it runs from east to west. Medieval accounts suggest that the shoreline from Mumbles to Ogmore used to lie 3 to 5 miles out to sea. The land in between was known as the Green Grounds and was crossed by a bridle path between Penrhos Castle and Margam Abbey, taking riders past Mumbles Headland. Historical accounts say that the Green Grounds were submerged when a storm surge or mini tsunami engulfed many places along the Bristol Channel in 1607, so Mumbles may have its very own version of Atlantis. The other factors to consider with any sea kayak are, of course, the wind direction and strength, and the sea swell forecast. We usually use surfforecast.com to get the forecast for the sea swell conditions whenever we go sea kayaking. With Swansea Bay, when the wind is from the south or west, which is usually the case, then the western half of the bay around Mumbles is usually a lot calmer than the eastern half of the bay towards Swansea. As we neared Blackpill, we were now almost halfway along the route. As usual, we were a bit behind schedule, but still hoped to get to Swansea before the tide turned against us too much. We're just passing Blackpill now. You can see the footbridge there crossing over the pill. There's a nice pub just behind there called the Woodman. Seems to be getting progressively choppier as we head eastwards across the bay. I hope Archie's not starting to feel seasick already. Swansea is the second largest city in Wales and is located on the south coast. Swansea is thought to have been founded in 1013 as a Viking settlement established by the Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard, who had led a number of raiding parties in the area. The name is of Viking origin, coming from Swain's Eye or Swain's Island. Sweyn was the father of King Canute, who had the same respect for the tides as the Kayak Crew. Although shrouded in the mists of time, the likely location for the Viking settlement would have been near to the mouth of the Towie River, quite near to where we finished this paddle. Since this predated when there was a Sainsbury's supermarket alongside the river, the Vikings probably had to resort to pillaging in order to do their weekly shop. There's the secret beach bar and kitchen on the left, which is another one of our watering holes. That very tall tower on the right is the Meridian Tower, and the large building there in front of us is County Hall in Swansea. Following the Norman conquest, Swansea was integrated into the Marcher Lordship of Gower. Swansea Castle was built in 1106. The Norman town of Swansea mostly ran alongside the river. The only visible remains of Swansea Castle today are the 2 sides of the rectangular southeast corner of the Outer Bailey. Swansea was already a significant port by the late 1500s, with limestone and coal being amongst its main exports. By the early 18th century, Swansea had earned the nickname Copperopolis, since it was the world centre for copper production. Ahead of us at the end of the beach, you can see the entrance to the Towie River, with the port of Swansea in the background. Just turning around to check that Archie hasn't fallen overboard. Nice view of the Meridian Tower in the background. Swansea Marina is just behind those beachfront apartments. Beer Reef Brewing and Swansea Yacht Club are 2 great places by the marina to have some beers and maybe some food overlooking the marina and the river. That's the old observatory there. That's a great place to come for a couple of beers or a coffee and some food overlooking the beach. The Towie River is just the other side of this long concrete pier. While you can enter the Towie River from the bay, there is a barrage about 500 metres upstream from the mouth of the river. Unless you can persuade the lockkeeper to open the lock gates for your kayak, you therefore will not be able to progress any further upstream, so the only place to land and get out here is at the end of the beach. As it starts to get rather dusky, we're just coming into land now on Swansea Beach over there. What a great paddle across Swansea Bay. If you enjoyed this video, then please give us a thumbs up and consider clicking on the left below to subscribe to our channel to get updates about trip reports, product review videos and our kayaking guides. Click on the right below to be taken to our playlist of other videos of our paddles around the Wales coast. Please check out our website link below. Happy paddling from the Kayak Crew.